recording. So thank you, God, for everything. And like I said last week, we were doing the bind, bound prisoner, captive, fellow prisoner, fellow servant, and we as we study, or as I study, I get like 10 words, 10 Hebrew words or Greek words that mean the same thing, like captive or prisoner or something. And then as you're studying, you run across more words, and you just keep adding to the list of words that you're going to study. And as we were studying last week, we came up with like 5 or 6 words that I didn't have written down. And I'm glad that we came across them, and it's no accident. So we'll look at those today. We're just going to continue on with that captivity study, captivity bound.
Hey, pardon me, John. You guys can turn off your cams during the study, and you still have your camera on, John. Just so you guys know.
Yeah, okay. And somebody's got their volume on. So we'll turn that, if you can turn your volume off so we don't hear the background noise, that would be great. So there we go. And we wound up, the last thing I think we looked, there was a couple of, oh, here we go. We were looking at the soon words, like soon, soon doulos, and we know soon means with. And we ran across like 3 or 4 of these words here that there's a few verses here. There's 10 verses that have to do with fellow servant, which is sundulos. So we know servant is the word doulos, and that of course takes us into what we are. We are bondmen. We are bound, and this dio here is bind. When we talked about bind and loose, we know binding and loosing has to do with guilt and innocence, would be forbidding and allowing, and things like that. So we're bound, and we're servants, and that's what actually makes us free. So we'll get into that a little bit later. I got some of that on the side, the bind verses, and we'll get into those. Also, we'll do some of this here. This is a fellow servant, the one who serves with the same manner, the same master with another. So, and there's 10 verses here. We don't have to read them all, but they're nice to know. In Matthew 18:28, he says, but the servant went out and found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 pence, and he laid hands on him and he took him by the throat, saying, pay me that thou owest. And we went through that last week. I remember, just popped into my brain. This guy was he owed some money to his master, and the master called him on the carpet, and he said, please, give me some time and I'll pay you back. And the master forgave him and said, okay. And then this guy went out and he saw one of his fellow servants who owed him money. And the guy says, I'll pay you, please forgive me. And he said, no, and he threw him in the prison. So, and then the master went back to the original guy and says, I forgave you and you couldn't forgive this guy, so now I'm going to throw you in prison. So that's what that was all about. And then in 18, this is all Matthew 18, 28, 29, 31, all about the fellow servants. And then in 1833, he says, shouldest not thou also have compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on you? So, and then eventually he threw him in the prison house. And in Matthew 24:49, he says, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants and to eat and drink with the drunken. Now, I don't have that in context, but that's one of the words for fellow servant here. And Colossians 1:7, as you also learned of Epaphras, our dear fellow servant, who is for you a faithful minister of Christ. So all these verses have to do with fellow servant. And in Colossians 4:7, he says, all my states shall Tychicus declare unto you, who is a beloved brother and a faithful minister and a fellow servant in the Lord. And we can look it up, all those words: beloved brother, adelphos, agape adelphos, faithful minister. That's a deacon, I think. Let me put those thing up there. Faithful minister. Pistius is faithful, and diakonos, yeah, faithful minister. And in Revelation 6:11, it talks about, and white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season until their fellow servants and also their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. And these are the people that were under the altar, and they were looking up saying, please God, how long are you going to have us here doing this, you know? And all of us are fellow servants. And when the last one is in, that's it. Lock it up. We're going. Time is no more. And we're going to be with the Lord. So as soon as the last fellow servant is in, that's going to be the end of time. And then in Revelation 19:10, it was John, he says, and I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. That's an interesting line. The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. A testimony. The maturia. That's the martyrs, is a witness. Martyrs means witness. So the martyrs of Jesus, the testimony of Jesus, is the spirit of prophetia, prophecy, prophesying. And in Revelation 22:9, then saith he unto me, see thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant. And another one of the angels that John was dealing with in his dreams or his visions, and he was about to bow to these fellow servants. And they said, no. So we know he wasn't talking to Jesus at that time. But there was some instances where John had these visions, and he was talking to Jesus, because in some verses he says that John fell down at his feet. And guess what? He didn't say get up. He kept him down and said, yeah, okay. Now you know who you're talking to. And then you got this other word here, which is a fellow prisoner. It's got the soon word. We know soon is with or beside. And aikmalatos is captive. And it's one time in the Bible we looked at that, really. We looked at that last week. Aikmalatos. And so in Romans 16:7, he's doing all these salutings, and I looked at all the salutings in the Bible, and there's a lot of names there. And would it be something to have your name written in the Bible? I was just curious, and I looked up all the verses that have the word salute in it, and all the names that pop up. And you know, we take for granted, we know all the big names: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Peter, you know, and the apostles and the people that wrote the epistles and Paul. But then you got these guys here like Lucius, Jason, Sosipater, Urbane, Priscilla, Aquila, all of these names over here, and Titus and Tychicus and you know, Aphia, Archippus, Lydia, all these names that are in the Bible, and they were fellow servants and fellow prisoners. Malatos. So, and he says here, salute Andronicus and Junia, my kinsmen and my fellow prisoners, who are of note among the apostles, who also were in Christ before me. So, in Colossians 4:10, Aristarchus, my fellow prisoner, saluteth you, and Marcus, sister's son to Barnabas, touching whom you receive the commandments. If he come unto you, receive him. So he's giving all of these salutes to people, and he's telling the other people that I'm leaving, but if this guy comes in my name, you know, accept him. And then Philemon, he says, there salute the Epaphras, my fellow prisoner in Christ. So all these people, if you're a fellow prisoner, a fellow servant, and these are all together here, we're bound, you know, we're captives there. So, and then a fellow soldier would be soustratiotes. It's the soon, and stratiotes means soldier. Stratia means host. And from the base of 4766, which is stronumi, which means to spread or to throw or to furnish, through the idea of positing. Okay, you can go on and on. You can just keep going on and on. All these words, and stereos is another one that means strong, sure, and steadfast. So all of these words are related. And of course, this big one here, 2476, is the word histome, which means to stand, to set, or to establish. And you'll see that a lot in your studies. It's a suffix on a lot of different words. Histome means to stand, and they're all connected here. So, and then in Philippians 2:25, he says, "Yet I suppose it necessary to send unto you Epaphroditus, my brother and companion in labor and fellow soldier, but your messenger, and he that ministered to my wants." And also on Philemon, that's Philippians 2:25, and then Philemon 1:2, he says, "And to our beloved Aquila and Archippus, our fellow soldier, to the church of thy house." And that's where they met, in houses like we do here. When we started this, I first went to brother, what's his name's house, Brother Willie's house. He's no longer with us. He left the fellowship. But then he moved down south there to Tennessee. And I kind of like picked up the mantle, and started having it at my house. And then we would have it at different people's houses. We met from house to house to house. And it wound up being this Skype ministry. And this is good. This is how they met back there in the first century. And this is how we're meeting now, not in these big mega churches with 10,000, 20,000 people passing the hat, collecting money for ourselves. And this word here is sun ergos. And ergos is to work. So you got the sun, and ergon means to work or to deed, to do business. So these are helpers, fellow helpers or fellow laborers. And you see all the names: Priscilla, Aquila, helpers in Christ. Salute Urbane, our helper in Christ. And Stachys, my beloved. One of these days I'm going to look up all these names and see what they mean too, because a lot of times you'll see the name, and right next to it you'll see it'll have in context the meaning of their name, and I like that. A lot of times you're trying to figure out what a name means, and it's right there in the context. And Timotheus, my fellow worker, or my work fellow, and look at this: Lucius, Jason, Sosipater, and my kinsmen salute you, for we are laborers together with God. You are God's husbandry. You are God's building. I like that. And 2 Corinthians 1:24, not for that we have dominion over you, but are helpers of your joy, fellow laborers. For by faith ye stand. And then 2 Corinthians 8:23, whether any do inquire of Titus, he is my partner and fellow helper concerning you. Or our brethren be inquired of, they are the messengers of the churches and the glory of Christ. So these fellow helpers, fellow prisoners, fellow laborers, partners. 8:23, a partner is koinonos, and that's what we're doing here now. We're partaking, and we're having koinonia, which is fellowship, which is common, and then fellowship. Koinonia is fellowship. And my brethren, brethren, of course, is the adelphos, and messengers of the churches, and that's what they are. That's what an apostle means. Apostolos, it means he that is sent. Apo and stelo. So apostello is apo. The word apo is of or from and separation. And the word stello, let me get it up here. Apo and stello. We'll put it up there. Stello, to avoid, withdraw oneself, to set in place. And here you go again. Here's the histome. It's another byproduct of this stand, histome. And That was 8:23, and then Philippians 2:25. We read fellow soldier, same thing. My brother, companion in labor, fellow soldier, but your messenger, and he that ministered to my wants, and that's the apostle. And then a yoke fellow, Philippians 4:23. And I entreat thee also, true yoke fellow. Well, what's that word here? Yoke fellow. One of the apostles' fellow laborers. Some have conjectured that Epaphroditus is meant. We don't know who is meant, but let's find out what yoke fellow means. 4:3, a yoke fellow is Suzugos. Suzugos. You got the sun, and the zugos is comes from suzegnumi, to join together. Suz, that's the sun, and zugos, which means to pair or to yoke. Two draught cattle, horses yoked together or a pair, and it's the same as this 22:18, which is zugos, which means yoke or a pair of balances, a yoke. So something that's together, it's joined together. Zugos. I love just looking at these words and seeing where they take me. And that's soon zugos. Forgot what verse that was. Okay, the yoke fellow. Yeah, okay. That was 4:3. Okay, and Colossians 4:11. And Jesus, which is called Justus, who are of the circumcision, so they're Jews, they are only my fellow workers unto the kingdom of God, which have been a comfort unto me. And 1 Thessalonians 3:2, and sent Timotheus, our brother and minister of God, and our fellow laborer in the gospel of Christ, to establish you and to comfort you concerning your faith. And these are all good, comforting words to help us. And Philemon 1:1, Paul, a prisoner of Jesus Christ, and Timothy, our brother, unto Philemon, our dearly beloved and fellow laborer. And all these other fellow laborers here, Marcus, Aristarchus, Demas, Lucas, are my fellow laborers. And then 3 John 1:8, he says, we therefore ought to receive such that we might be fellow helpers to the truth. Fellow helpers, fellow laborers, and hopefully that's what we are with one another. So that just wraps that up. We wanted to wrap that up last week, so we did that now. And there was a bunch of words that we came across that we looked at last week. That I don't have them up on the screen now, but the 1199, the desmos, and the soon ikomalatos. We looked at that, ikomalatos, and the other ones in the Greek and the Hebrew. Let me just throw them up here real quick so you can see what we were looking at last week. And we'll probably look at some of these again today too. The 11. We'll look at some of these today. No, I don't have them down here, but I'll put them up here real quick because there's a whole slew of them from like 1199, which is desmon, which means a bond or a band or a bond. When we were looking up binding, and that also comes from this word dio, which is bind. 1199. And the other one was 1198. We looked at that. 1198. All the verses for that. And that's the prisoner verse. That's where desmios, which means a prisoner, to be in bonds, captive or a prisoner. Comes from 1199, which is what we're looking at here. So these are all connected to the dio. This dio is the main one. And that's the word prisoner. There's 16 verses for that one. And you can see all of those. We went through those. And there was, what was the other one? 1198, 99. Actually, 1195, 96, 97, all of them. 1195. Bind, okay. Desmuo comes from 1196. We'll throw that up there too. 1196, 96. All of these are connected. There's a whole bunch of them. So 1195, 1196, for you bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, speaking of the Pharisees, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them at one of their fingers. So you got these people jumping through hoops for you, and you won't even lift a finger to help. And Paul was talking about himself, and he says in Acts 22:4, he says, "And I persecuted this way unto death, binding and delivering at the prisons both men and women." And I was, I'm not even going to talk about it. There was this guy I had online. I was arguing with him, he's talking about how great Paul was and how he did great things. I said, yeah, he was a serial killer. He was shocked. He said, what? What are you saying? I said, today he would be considered a serial killer. He couldn't wrap his brain around him. I gave him all the verses where Paul persecuted right here, this one here. I didn't even see this one. I could have gave it to him. But every time Paul talked about himself, he talked about killing people. If he wasn't a serial killer, he was at least conspired to genocide. But he was rounding up Christians and having them killed, even if he wasn't killing them himself. I mean, he was there when the first so-called martyr was there. When they martyred Stephen, they stoned him to death. Saul was there collecting all the garments of the people that were standing around while they were stoning him. So he was there for that first martyrdom. So he was involved. But you can't point that out to these people. They don't want to hear it. And they say, Jesus was meek and humble too. And I said, yeah. I told him, I said, read Matthew 23. Tell me how humble Jesus was when he was calling these guys children of hell, vipers, white as sepulchres. Your father's the devil. Yeah, no, he was real humble, real meek there, right? They just pick out verses that they want to hear, and they don't want to read the rest, you know. So. And then Luke 8:29, for he commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man, for oftentimes it had caught him and kept him bound with chains and fetters. I went through the bound, I went through the chains and fetters. I looked up a bunch of those words, chains and fetters, because I got halusis, bonds, chain, and we looked at a bunch of, I think we looked at that last week, 254, right? These are all the verses for chains. Look at this. Chains, you do two bound with two chains. So you can get all of these. I don't know if we looked at them last week, but this is the verse, the word that you look up. If you get your word study concordance, and you go look up number 245, you got halusis, and you'll see all the verses for chain, bond, by which the body or any part of the hands or feet is bound. So that's that. All these people that were bound, and then the fetters is pede. It's 3976. Let me click this. See if I can get it up here. There you go. All right, 3976. And there's the verses with that. All right, and there it is. Chains and fetters. Same thing. Luke 8:29 and Mark 5:4. He was bound. And the word bound here is the word dio. See? All these things are connected. Everything's connected. The Bible is one word, one big word. We're just looking to define it. That's all it is. So we got that. And then 1196. We went through all this last week. And the 4869, we looked at already. To be taken captive, 259. We looked at this last week, 259. Must be taken, halosis, captured, to be taken, and these are talking about the natural brute beasts that are made to be taken and destroyed, speak evil of the things that they understand not, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption, their own thora, their own corruption. Destruction, perishing, Pithora, Pithiero, corrupt. And these are good words too. I like them. Destruction. I can't think of the other word. Apollumi, destruction. So he said, "What's your name?" He says, Apollumi. Her name meant destruction. Let me see. So we got that. And there was another word, a bunch of words we were looking at in the Hebrew, and we'll just keep on with those. 78. We looked at this 7870 in the Hebrew. Let me look at that real quick. Oh, 7870. 7870. That's captivity. One time in the Bible. And it's from 7725. That's the shub. That's the return. We'll run into that a little bit today, I think, when we're talking about captivity, when it talks about return to captivity. It's the word shub. This is also the word for, what is it? Turn thou me and I shall be turned. That's repent. It's another word for repent. Shub, return. Turned again to captivity. And here it is here, turned again. The captivity. I used to think that they went into captivity again, but it means that he repented. He turned them out. He returned them from the captivity. Psalms 126 and 1. A song of degrees. When the Lord turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dream. So this is a good thing. When he turns again the captivity, it means he sets you free. What else? We had this 161. Let me look at that. We look at this 161. Is it 161? Or 161? I think it's 161. Let me look at that real quick. Yeah, captivity, captive. And we'll look at this again too. Ephesians 4:8. That's going to be in the study tonight. I was looking at that. I was reading that a few times in a couple of the words I was looking at in the Hebrew actually, and this came up. He says in 4:8, he says, wherefore he saith, when he ascended up on high, he led captivity captive and gave them and gave gifts unto them. And this is a correlation. This is Paul quoting something from the Old Testament, and hopefully we'll run into that because I got it down here for later on. And then Revelation 13:10, and he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. And here is the patience and faith of the saints. So you live by the sword, die by the sword. And this is Ike Malosia. Ike Malosia, captivity. It comes from Ike Malatos, and that means captive. Also means a spear. So, and that's that. We looked at that last week, so I'm not going to go crazy with it today. And so, and that we'll run into the words that I caught at the end of the study, and that would be this is prison here, okay, and this one is the rock. I was looking up rock. There's a lot of verses with rock being Jesus being the rock, and he's our rock, and he said to Peter, he says, your name is Peter, and upon this rock. And most people think he was talking about Peter, but he wasn't. He was talking about himself as being the rock, because Christ is the rock. And what's that verse anyway? Where is it? Real quick. Just I'm not going to go crazy with this rock thing. That was in a little side study I was doing for myself. Here it is, Matthew 16:18. Just to clear that up real quick, he says, and I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, Petros, which is actually means a stone. So he's Petros, and upon this Petra, this rock, I will build my church. And whenever you see rock, it's talking about Jesus, and you'll find that in the Old Testament, and you'll find that in the New Testament. He was the rock on which we were built, and all of that stuff. I looked at that earlier, but I'm not gonna mess with this now. It's a study for another day. But real quickly, I just wanted to clear it up, because I always thought, that Peter was the rock, and Peter's not the rock. Christ is the rock. So we're looking at, where is it here? There we go. 5470 is one that we ran into here. Kohar, actually Sohar, and it's the same as Sahar, You got Sohar and Sahar. And it just means round. Actually, it means roundness. TWOT 1468. Looked it up real quick. See, it's just roundness. Occurs only in the phrase Betohasa, or the roundhouse, which is a name of a prison. So if you go into the roundhouse, you go into the prison. House of roundness, roundhouse, prison. It's the name of a prison. And there's 6 verses here talking about that. And let me see. Joseph and Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound. And he was there in the prison. Let me look at this up real quick here. He put in the prison house where the king's prisoners, and we looked at this last week, the prisoners is the austere prisoner, bound, captive, bondman. We looked at that last week. Austere comes from asar, which means to bind or imprison. I'm astounded every time I do a study on one word, and you're looking up 20 different words in the Hebrew or Greek that are associated with it. So we just keep going, you know. Like I said, we looked at this last week, so I'm not going to go crazy with it. 615 and 631, if you want to write them down and take notes on them, you can look at them at your leisure. I know I jump around so fast, but like I said, we looked at it last week. But this put him in a prison house where he was bound. So you got both of them words. You got asir, where the prisoners were asar, bound, and he was in the prison, the Sohar. And also in 39:21, it's the same thing. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison, the Sar, the prince, the captain of the prison. And you'll see here it has the Sohar and Beth with it. So this means house. So the prison house, and you got 2 of them together there, prison. So wherever Joseph went, he found favor in the eyes of all the people, the prison men, everybody that he came across with. And then, and also it says, and the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison. Let's look at those. And the keeper of the prison, that's the Sar, the prison, committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners, the Asir, that were in the prison house, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. So he was in charge of, he was thrown into prison, and the keeper of the prison put him in charge of all the other prisoners. So how great is that? And the keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. In other words, the keeper of the prison trusted Joseph to do everything that was right. And in Genesis 40:3, he's talking about the butler and the baker. He said, and he put, let me put it in context here. 40:3 over here, he says, and he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. So the one word that we're looking up here is this prison, this Sohar, the prison Sohar, and he put him in ward, and this ward here is Mishma. This might be a new one on me too. 49:29. 49:29. I don't see that in my notes, so I'm going to write that down. See, we always find more words. 49:29. I'm going to write that down on the side, and we'll look at it some other time. And this is Mishma, place of compile. Why don't I have this? 49:29. I got 45:25. TWOT 24. When you see this word here, TWOT, that's the theological Word Book. Let me put it up here. TWOT is the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, and that's what this is here. If you have the book, fine, but this will be all of the stuff in the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, otherwise known as TWOT. So if I ever say TWOT, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, and we got the New Testament version, and that would be the Theological Dictionary of the New Testament, also known as TDNT. So we talk about the TDNT and the TWOT, and those are two very good books to have. I mean, the TDNT is a 10 volume set, and this TWOT is a 1 volume, but they cram so much stuff into it. But this is all the stuff you'll find in the TWOT on this word for guard or guard post, and that would be Mishmar. So we'll go down to Mishmar. Mishmar, where is it? Look at all of this. Here it is. Mishmar. Guard post, division of service. The noun is used one of the confinement in which someone is kept, and you'll see the verses that we're just talking about here. Genesis 40:3. He puts him in the ward house, and the captain of the guard in the prison, and the other one was Leviticus 24:12, and they put him in ward, that the mind of the Lord might be showed him. And a guard post in Nehemiah 4, 3, 16 and 17, and Nehemiah 7:3, talking about the watch. Foxholes, okay. Also a division of service, generally the temple service. So it goes. They'll break it down into two different things, and mishmeret, obligation or service. And as you can see down here in the bibliography, you'll see if there's anything down here that we can see. And this would, here you go, TDNT 9, page 237 to 239, and I wonder what that word is there. Be prison. Let me look it up real quick. TDNT 9. Let me pull it off here. TDNT 9, page 237, and I'll tell you what it is. Page 237 to 239. 237.
What's the work? What's the number again?
TDNT 9. 237, and this is Fulasso. So if you go to TDNT 9, page 237, you're going to find this word here. You'll find this word Fulasso 5442, and we're going to look at this tonight too because it's on my list of things to do. 54, and I'll show you 5442. And this is the kept or the keeping, Fulasso. See, TDNT 9, starting on page 236. And this would be, this number here, this 1280 would be if you have the 1 or 2 volume set of the Theological Dictionary. Instead of having TDNT 9, 236, you would go to the TDNT page 1280. That's all that number means right there. That confused me for so many years. I said, what does this number mean here? I know what TDNT 9236 is, but what is this number? And then Mike told me, well, he had the 2 volume set, and the 2 volume set, it just breaks it down into page numbers. So that would be page number 1280 in the 2 volume set. So this Fulasso, and we'll look at that later, and the 2443 is also, did I have the right word? Yeah, wait a second. 24, no, 24. There I go, getting dyslexic again. 5443. And this would be Fule, tribe or kindred. We're not so much interested in that as we are in this here, this prison thing, the keeping in the prison. So that's basically what this is talking about. And we were on this page here. I forget where we were. We just bounce all over the place. I love this. I think that's where we were. Yeah. Okay, we'll stay over here. Oh yeah. I gotta write this word down. That's why I write everything down. 4929. So we just went off on a little tangent study from this 5470, this prison house over here, Sohar. It took us to Mishmar, and I just did a quickie study on Mishmar, and that comes from Shama. Let me write that down. 8104. 8104 in the Hebrew. And that would be TWOT 2414. And look at that real quick. But we'll stay on what I got here. There's enough to keep us busy here, but those are on the side. And if we get a chance, we'll look at it. So I had this put this in context. It's Genesis 40:3. Where he put them in ward. That's where we got off on this word. Put them in the Mishmah, in the house, in the beth, and the captain of the guard, Tabok, guard, 2876. I just keep running into words that I want to look up. 2876 would be the captain of the guard. Captain of the guard, and he put them in the word, the captain of the guard. So this is captain of the guards. I'm going to write this number on the side, 2876, 2876. We'll look at that again some other day. Captain of the guard comes from 2873, which is tabak, which means kill or slaughter or slay. Wow, butcher, kill ruthlessly. Woo! Tabak. And that's TWOT 786. And there's a lot there, as you can see. There's a lot. Bodyguard, guardsman. The tabaha means a female cook. And the metbiah means slaughter. So, if you wanted to read all that. And look at this. This bibliography says TDNT 7, page 929, and you wonder what that is, So I'm curious. I got to pull the book down. It's got to be have something to do with prison. TDNT 7, page 929. It's nice to have these books to be able to go to. 929. Nancy 929 is slaying of an animal or slaying of a man, and that's svadzo. Let me find a verse here. All this talking about Old Testament stuff, and it's in the Septuagint. Okay. So that would be just slaying of an animal and slaying of a man. And the word is sphagia. Sphagia. I don't have a Strong's number right now because this is in the Hebrew. The Septuagint, sphaso, occurs 84 times. So, all right, I gotta stop going off on these tangents here. I don't want to confuse anybody, but this is how I study. I just jump around and I go all over the place. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to finish reading this in context that we had about the butler and the baker here, and he put them in the ward house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in ward. Let me look what that word is. Ward, that's the 4929. Okay, we'll look at that again some other day. 4929. And they dreamed a dream, both of them. Each man, his dream one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream. The butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. So that's the words we're looking at. And we know the story with the butler and the baker, you know. Joseph interpreted the dreams, and one of them was killed on Pharaoh's birthday. So there's another birthday where somebody died. And the other birthday was somebody died was, what's his name? Herod's birthday. John the Baptist was beheaded. So let's celebrate birthdays. And there was another birthday in the Bible where Job was talking about his children was celebrating everyone their day, which was talking about a birthday. So all 10 of the children were in this house celebrating somebody's birthday, and the house fell down on them. So why would you want to celebrate a birthday? And we know that birthdays mean nothing. It's the day of death is more important than the day of one's birth. So why celebrate your birth when you're just lifting yourself up? What's that? Ecclesiastes 7:1. Ecclesiastes. Where am I? Ecclesiastes 7:1. So why do you want to celebrate birthdays here? Yeah. A good name is better than precious ointment, and a day of death than the day of one's birth. Who cares about birthdays? It's not important. All right. So that's the 5470. We did that. So we'll get that out of the way. And this 953 here. This is Bore, B-O-R-E. And this jumps off into a lot of different places here. And we'll get into these. I think I'm going to read this here in the TWOT. So this is Strong's number is 953 in the Greek. The word is bor, B-O-W-R, and it's in the TWOT 194. So if you had a TWOT, you go to 194, and we'll see. I had some things written here. Hold on a second. 194. See if I got it in the book here. 194. Because we can't read everything. I mean, there's so much to read, but I just pick out some stuff that's pertinent to us in our studies here right now.
Page 87.
Yeah, I know where it is. All right, okay. So these are the words here. The main part of the word is bar, and it means to declare or to make plain. And how they got a well or a pit or a cistern out of that, your guess is as good as mine. And some of these guys, while I'm reading, they don't even know. But they go to different languages. Like, Hebrews take it from another language. Hebrew wasn't the original language. You got the Sumerian, and you got the Akkadian, you got the Ugaritic, you got all these different languages that are around. And some of these words look like they mean something, something else, but it could mean two different things. So when you read some of these things, you got to be careful what they're talking about. So it also means a well or a pit. And I'll put these up on the side over here because there's so many of the words here. And I'm going to throw the numbers up here. You got 953. 53, that's the main one we're looking at here. This is the pit. And also this 952, not so much, because this would be the verb part of it, and it's one time in the Bible. And let's look at it real quick. 952, and how they got cistern out of the rest of these verbs, I don't know. Excuse me. You got to do the Greek, Hebrew. When I do the Greek, it's you got to put the 0 in front of it. 952. So that's one time in the Bible. And he says in Ecclesiastes 9:1, for all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them. And that's the word here, is bur, B-U-W-R, one time in the Bible. And it's even on a different page in the TWOT. So we're not even going to get into that right now. So, but there's other words here. This 877, that's one of the words that also means the broken cisterns, in Jeremiah 2:13, he says, "My people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water." And there's the word here, bore. So you got, the same spellings that got different vowel points on them. If you put the letters together, it would be the BR, but you would have a different vowel point on it. So that's cistern. And 874 is 874. Take a sin by occasion. Now we go again. I got to put the 0 in front of it. I keep forgetting the 0. 0874. Declare. Okay, so we're not going to talk about this. This is bar. Bar is declare. But there's another one here. And I found them not by accident, but by looking around here. 877, 874. To pay claim. And that would be 875 and 876. 875, 75, and 876. 876. All right, the beer. Yeah, Beersheba and Beer Le Hiroy. There's a lot of interesting stuff on that. 884 and 877. 884, and that's Beersheba. And you see beer, Sheba, means a well of the sevenfold oath. Now, Sheba means seven, but it also means oath. So I guess they put well of the sevenfold oath. So beer and then Sheba is 7. Okay. But if you take it a little further, you get Shabbat, and we know that means to swear or to take an oath. So Beersheba is the well of 7, right? Which is the well, or the spring, or the pit. Well, we say the well of 7, or the well of taking the oath. But they say the well of the wilderness of the well of the sevenfold oath, something like that. So that's 884, and then 877. 877 is that's broken cisterns. Okay. What was the other one? 876. We got that, and 884, and then you got 893. Bear with me here. 875 we got, and then we got 879. I found a whole bunch of them. 879, and have to do with this word beer limb. For the cry is gone round about the borders of Moab, the howling thereof unto Eglaim, and the howling thereof unto Beer Lim. And that's a well of something, a well of God, a well in the south of Moab. So it's beer, it's the well, and Elohim, or El, actually, El is God. So Beer Elim, it means the well of God. I love the way these words come together. Beer Elim. So that's that. And so I'm going to put this up here so you can read along here. And I'll find a place that where did I start with here? The noun. Beer Elim, I got that. Okay. Wells for the water. Like I said, we can't read everything here. Beer also designates slime or bitumen pit, as in 1410. And the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the king of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they remained fled to the mountain. Those are the slime pits here. Okay. The noun also Beersheba, and then Beer Le Hairoi is the well of the living one. Beer Le Hairoi, the word living is K, and Roy is the living one who sees me. So this Beer Le Hairoi, well of the living one who sees me. This is the name of a particular site between Kadesh and Bered, as yet unidentified. It was the dwelling place of Isaac and the site of Hagar's deliverance from thirst. The name is connected with the phrase, "Thou art God who sees," but is the subject of much conjecture because people think it means a couple of different things. Like this Genesis 16:13, when you look at the Strong's numbers, he says, "And she called the name of the Lord and spake unto her, Thou God, El, seest me, El Roy, for she said, Here also I have looked after him that seeth me." So look is Ra'ah, after him that seeth me, Roy. So it's the Beth, where is it? Well, Beth, Beer Lehe Roy, well of the living one who sees me. And then we got the well of 7, talking about the well of Beersheba. So we got off a little bit on the wells and things like that, but I'm still doing captive, bound, prison, and all that stuff. But this stuff comes with that. One derives it from the oath, the Shebuah between Abraham and Abimelech, we attested by 7 Sheba lambs. So they did the 7 lambs. They did the sacrifice there at that well, and they called it Beersheba. And the second connects it with an oath, Shebuah. So it's the well of the oath or the well of the 7. So they put it together and they made the well of the 7-fold oath, sworn by Isaac. This is probably an example of a name explanation which was not intended to be etymological by a wordplay for interest and easier memory of the incidents. So they name things after, if you're doing something somewhere and something happens, you say, oh, that's the place where we did this. That's the place where I broke his head. So we're going to call it Broken Head. So the place may have been called Beersheba before the incidents were described. Another clear example, such as a non-etymological wordplay, is Babel. And the word Babel could mean a couple of different things. We know when we think of Babel, we think of confusion. We think of the word confusion. That's the first thing that pops into my mind. But in the Akkadian, Genesis 11 and 9, he says, therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did confound the language of all the earth. And when you look up confound, it's Balal, Ball, but this Babel is Babel. So confusing by mixing. So this Balal could be something else. He can confuse the language, and Balal in Akkadian means gate of God. But it sounds somewhat like the verb balal, to confound, and you can see the L in there. Babel. It's if I saw Babel without knowing what anything meant, all I saw was the L here, El. I would think my first thing would be God. When you see El, that's what you think of behind the word. El means God, and Bab, so it's the well. I would say the well of God, but we call it confounding. Babel means confounding. So if that doesn't confuse you, don't worry about it if it does, because we can say Babel means confound, because that's what the context of the verse tells us, that Babel means confound. God confounded them, and we just ran with that. And anytime we talk about babbling, babbling on, it means confusion. But Babel means a well of God, or the gate of God, they say. according to the Akkadian language, not the Hebrew. And then a cistern. We're not going to get into that. And then a cistern, or a dudgeon, or a fountain, or a pit, or a well. Bore related to the cistern. We got this. We looked at this already. Jeremiah. Yeah, the broken cisterns, as well as to Beer well, which to which is parallel in Proverbs 5:15. Drink waters out of thy own cistern, and running waters out of thine own well. So that just means to be faithful, to your spouse. Drink waters out of thine own bore, and running waters. These are the good waters. The running waters out of thine own well, thine own Beer. So that's good. So it's a masculine noun, perhaps from the root ber, which means to write plainly, and it occurs 75 times. So it comes from the word to speak plainly. Bore may refer to a large pit in the earth. One of David's mighty men slew a lion in the pit. Let me see which one I was doing. And plastered. They would have these pits, and they would plaster the sides of them, and then, like they said, it made good prisons, because you can't get up out of it. It's plastered. The side is plastering, and then pits or cisterns with their steep, smooth side made excellent prisons. Isaiah 24:22. He says, and they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days shall they be visited. I had something on the side here for this. 24:22. Where is it? Isaiah 24:22. Oh, it's got the three different words. Yeah, it's got 616. And whoops. All right. It's got gathered together as prisoners. So there's the prisoners. There's the Asir gathered into the pit, the bore, and shut up. 54:62. Sagar, shut up in the prison. So these two are connected here. Shut up in the prison, 54:62 and 45:25. Masgar, these are the same thing. TWOT 14:62. I had them on the side there. Okay. The Masgar 45:25. I think I had these down here, 45:25. Let me see real quick. 45:25. There it is. All right. So I did a little quickie study on that. That was a good one. But let me get back to this. So if we have time, we'll get into that one too. I wrote them down. That's 45:25 and 54:62. So those two words go together, and that's TWOT 14:62. It goes with enclosure or dungeon or a builder of bulwarks. Let me see. I lost the word already. Segur. Enclosure occurs validly only in Hosea 13:8, where it is used of Israel's heart enclosure, KJV, kual in the Old English, the cap cover up surrounding them. So Hosea 13:8, he says, I will meet them as a bear that is bereaved of her whelps, and will rend the caul of their heart, and there will I devour them like a lion. The wild beast shall tear them. So I'm just wondering what the word here, I think it's the caul. All right, torn open and devoured by the divine displeasure. The other proposed occurrence in Job 28:15, He says, it cannot be gotten for gold, neither shall the silver be weighed for the price thereof. Segor should be related to the Akkadian Sag and Crew. Hebrew Segor, shortened from the Akkadian pure gold. So basically, that's what that means. And then Shugar is a cage with hooks. Depicts a cage with hooks, which with Jehoiakim, like a caged lion, was brought to Nebuchadnezzar. Ezekiel 19:9, and they put him in ward and chains, and brought him to the king of Babylon, and brought him into holds, that his voice should no more be heard upon the mountain of Israel. Jehoiakim. He was some dude. He was some character there. Jehoiakim. And then this Masger, enclosure dungeon, builder of bulwarks. The noun hides two roots from the Akkadian. You'll see Akkadian a lot, and you'll see Sumerian, you'll see Egyptian, we know that, and you also see this word Ugaritic. These are languages that the Hebrew looked back to form some of the words that they use. So this is from the Akkadian Segura, a loan word from the Sumerian Sigar, a door with a bar, and the Egyptian Tikkar, or fortified gateway, from Akkadian Sekuru. The former is used figuratively to depict the imprisonment of God's enemies, as in Isaiah 24:22, like we just read. And that has a bunch of words in it. And the release of his people from spiritual bondage, Isaiah 42:7, he says, to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. And you'll see that also in Isaiah 61:1. We'll probably run into that too. And then in Psalms 142:7, it says, bring my soul out of prison, that I may praise thy name. The righteous shall compass me about, for thou shalt deal bountifully with me. So bring me out of that prison. Bring their soul out of it. So the latter denotes the artisans or engineers who were carried off into exile, who could have provided defense bulwarks against the captors. But they were all taken captive, so they couldn't do anything. So he carried away all Jerusalem, all the princes, all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained save the poorest of the people of the land. So he carried all these people away, the smiths and everything else. And Jeconiah, that's the same thing as Jehoiakim, the king and the queen and the eunuchs and the princes, and he took them all away. And they were departed from Jerusalem. And that was in the, I think the first deportation. That was in like 605 or something like that. And the other one was in 597 BC. And the last one was 586 BC, of course. You know, and there's Mizgaret, or border, rim, or a fortress bulwarks. Okay, so that was a quickie study on this this prison word here, to be shut up in the prison. So I could take that off the list, but we'll leave it there anyway. So back to this word here, this 953, this bore. So they make excellent prisons. That's Isaiah 24:22. That took us off on another study. Hence, Joseph's brothers held him prisoner in a pit until they sold him to the Midianites. Genesis 30:27-29. So in Egypt, he was kept in a dungeon. We read that in Genesis 40 and 41. And then the last plague on Egypt affected even such prisoners. So Exodus 12:29 talks about, and it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne until the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And probably everything that was firstborn died. You're talking about all the firstborn of the animals, the firstborn, everybody. Oh, it was a lot of weeping and wailing that day, that night. 12:29. Jeremiah's opponents threw him into a pit, but Ebed-Melech rescued him. That's in Jeremiah 38. Bet Habor is the house of the pit. May also be a general word for a dungeon, and that's 12:29 we just read. And Jeremiah 37:16 talks about the dungeon. Cisterns served as convenient dumping areas for corpses. Jeremiah 41:79, and they served as hiding places in times of danger. 1 Samuel 13:6. Well-known cisterns serve as geographical locations. There was cisterns all over the place. So in figurative usage, the wicked who lays a snare is like a man who digs a pit and falls into it himself. So that's Psalms 7:15. He says he made a pit and he digged it and has fallen into the ditch that he made. So he made a pit, a bore. He digged it, and he's fallen into the ditch. This ditch is Shakath. Stop it there. Shakath. Corruption. All right, yeah, look at that. Corruption. Shuach, bow down, incline. So I want to get into that. Fall down. So one's wife is his own cistern. So you drink from your own cistern, and should find satisfaction with her. Death is the breaking of the wheel at the cistern. You go to Ecclesiastes 12, and you'll see that, or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. So these are all talking about parts of the body. If you go to Ecclesiastes 12, and you can relate all of these different pictures, silver cords, golden bowls, fountains, the wheels at the cistern, these are all parts of the body. When you're growing old, this is what it's talking about. And I got, let me see if I got, see if I can find it here. I always forget where Ecclesiastes is in the Bible. You know that? I always have trouble finding it. Ecclesiastes. It's after, right after Psalms and Proverbs. So, there we go, Ecclesiastes. We go to 12, and I just wanted to see if I had these written down as to what each part of the body is here. If I can read this. Remember, okay, let me put this up here. A little side journey here. He says, remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. So it's talking about getting old. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. The clouds return after the rain is one affliction after another. That's basically what that verse means. You got one affliction after the other. And in the days when the keepers of the house shall tremble, the keepers of the house are the bones, the muscles, the teeth. The keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men. So you got the bones are the keepers of the house, and the strong men are the muscles, shall bow themselves, and the grinders, and the grinders, that's the teeth, shall cease because they are few. Your teeth are falling out. And those that look out the windows be darkened. So those are your eyes. And then grinders cease, there are few, and those that look out the windows be darkened. Now, where's the ears? So I got arms, legs, teeth, eyes. So the keepers of the house, that would be like, your arms and your legs. And your teeth, those are the grinders. And the look out the window, those are the eyes. I had ears here too, I forget where the ears were. Anyway, and the doors shall be shut in the street, and that's the mouth. And the doors shall be shut in the street when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird. I'm getting up at 5 o'clock, and I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And all the daughters of music shall be brought low. So there's your ears. You're going deaf. So you get all the doors, and that's the mouth, and the sound of the grinding is low. So you're going deaf, and you rise up at the voice of the bird. So that's sleeplessness. So you're rising early. And all the daughters of music, the daughters equal the ear and the voice, shall be brought low. So you're going deaf. And I have verses to back these up, but I'm not going to go there right now. And then, and when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fear shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. So that's what happens when somebody died. They used to hire mourners to go, and so the almond tree shall flourish. So you're talking about gray hairs, at the grave, and the mourners be despised. Yeah. So it's basically talking about, your body falling apart. And then the silver cord, or the silver cord to be loosed. Silver cord could be the spinal cord, or be loosed, or the golden bowel be broken. That could be your skull, or the pit should be broken at the fountain. And you're talking about the veins and your heart here, or the wheel broken at the cistern. You're talking about the internal organs. You're talking about blood flow, and you're talking about the veins and the hearts here in this verse here. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. So that's it. It's all those body parts and everything breaking down to the whole man. So I looked that up one day if I wanted to figure out what all that meant, and I kind of did. And you might agree, you might not agree, but I think I hit it pretty good. Where were we? So Sarah is the pit from which Israel was hewn. Sarah, hearken to me, ye that follow after righteousness, ye that seek the Lord. Look unto the rock. Here you go. Look unto the rocks whence you are hewn, and to the hole of the pit whence you are digged. Look unto Abraham your father, and unto Sarah that bare you, for I called him alone and blessed him and increased him. So who did Sarah have? Isaac. And in Isaac shall thy seed be known or called. So the rock whence you are hewn, and to the hole of the pit whence you are digged. So it's talking about Abraham and Sarah. Out of her womb came Isaac. And we know that it came through Isaac, through Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and so on. So experiencing great danger may be compared to being cast alive into a pit from which one may cry to the Lord. Lamentations 3, 53 and 55. They have cut off my life in the dungeon and cast a stone upon me. I call upon thy name, O Lord, out of the low dungeon. This ain't in context here. That's all right. The dungeon, there you go. All right. I call my name out of the low dungeon. Low dungeon. Takit, all the parts. I thought we were going to get further in this, but we'll finish up with this here. Let me see. Pits or cisterns. So in a figurative usage, we read that. All right. The state of death. Where is it? Okay. Well, let me finish this. And delivered. So we're going to be delivered out of this. Psalms 40 and 2. He says, he brought me up also out of a horrible pit, out of miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my goings. That's probably why I got into the rock study. I started reading that, and I just zoomed off into some kind of study on a rock. Which I did that once before, but I just wanted to put it all down on paper, So deliverance from captivity is being set free from the waterless pit. Zechariah 9:11. He says, "As for thee also, by the blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit, wherein is no water." So you can just be down there. So the state of death is going down into the pit. Psalms 28:1 said, "David, I will cry unto thee, O Lord, my rock. Be not silent unto me, lest if thou be silent unto me, I become like them that go down into the pit." So it's talking about the death or the grave. Hence the dead are those who go down to the pit. Psalms 88:4, "I am counted with them that go down into the pit. I am as a man that hath no strength." Psalms 88:6 also, he says, "Thou hast laid me in the lowest pit, in darkness in the deeps." Psalms 143:7, "Hear me speedily, O Lord, my spirit feeleth, hide not thy face from me, lest I be unto them that go down into the pit." So the pits, in some sense of a synonym, is Sheol. We know Sheol is the grave, or hell, actually. They call it hell, but it's the grave. Proverbs 1:12, "Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit." So this is probably Sheol here, 75, 85. Yeah, that's Sheol. That's the grave. Is Sheol. Yet they shall be brought down to hell. Isaiah 14:15. There's the word Sheol, and to the sides of the pit. And there's the word we're looking at now. And in 14:19 he says, "But thou art cast out of the grave," there's the Sheol, "like an abominable branch, and as a raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet." So all of these synonymous words for the grave, for the Sheol, for hell. In Isaiah 38:18, "For the grave cannot praise thee. Death cannot celebrate thee. They that go down into the pit cannot hope for thy truth." So we don't want that. Ezekiel, however, distinguishes them. In Ezekiel 32:18, he says, "Son of man, wail for the multitude of Egypt, and cast them down, even her and the daughters of the famous nations, unto the nether parts of the earth, with them that go down into the pit." Nether parts of the earth, nether parts. Takith, okay. Nether parts, or the lowest parts. Takat, under, beneath, instead. Double down into the pit, and that's the word we're looking at. That's the bore. And whom dost thou pass in beauty, go down and be laid with the uncircumcised? They shall fall in the midst of them that are slain by the sword. She is delivered to the sword. Draw her and all her multitudes. The strong among the mighty shall speak to him out of the midst of hell, with them that help him. They are gone down, they lie uncircumcised, slain by the sword. Asher is there, and all her company. His graves are about him, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, whose graves are set in the sides of the pit, and her companies round about her grave, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, which caused terror in the land of the living. And there is Elam and all her multitude round about her grave, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, which are got down uncircumcised into the nether parts of the earth, which caused their terror to the land of the living, yet they have borne their shame with them that go down to the pit. And it goes on. He talks about Meshach and all these other guys here. Roundabout, Meshach, Tubal, gone to the graves. And they cause terror in the land of the living. And they shall lie with the mighty that are fallen and uncircumcised, into hell, Sheol, and the bore, and the pit, and though they were the terror of the mighty in the land of the living. So you can do all of this stuff in the land of the living, but you're going to be slain with the sword. You're going to go down to the pit. And also there's Edom, kings and princes, and they with them go down to the pit. There be the princes of the north, all of them, the Zidonians, which are slain, they go down into the pit. Pharaoh shall see them and shall be comforted over all his multitude, even Pharaoh and all his army slain by the sword, saith the Lord. And he says, for I have caused my terror in the land of the living, and he shall be laid in the midst of the uncircumcised with them that are slain with the sword, even Pharaoh and all his multitude. So all these guys are going to be holding hands down there in the pit. That's it. Be all you want here on this earth. It means nothing. So the psalmist in distress pleads for deliverance from the pit. In Psalms 30:3, he says, O Lord, thou hast brought up my soul from the grave. Thou hast kept me alive, that I should not go down into the pit. Also 40:2, we read that, and likens his recovery to being drawn up from the horrible pit. Peoples like Tyre, Egypt, Assyria, Elam, Edom, and Sidon are threatened with being brought down to the pit. So that's that pit. And there's nothing, TDOT, I wonder what that is. I got to get that, whatever that is. And you can look at the Gilgamesh epic and Old Testament parallels, death and the afterlife. So if you're ever interested in getting these books, the Old Testament and the future life, primitive conceptions of death and the netherworld in the Old Testament. There's so many different things to read on this stuff, but who knows what these guys are writing about. So that was a quickie on, well, that wasn't a quickie, but that was on this bear, the well, the slime pits, the pit. And it was some other things I wanted to get into. I can't believe I just stayed on that one thing. And there's other things, 2280, this is 2280. This is the bind, girded, bound up, bound, bind up, bind up. And this is kabash, saddle, bind up. TWOT 599. I don't think I read this. To bind one's head skin, saddle and ass. Often use of binding on a bandage, medicating, healing a wound. Rule govern. Habash is taken in the sense of the Arabic habasha, to imprison by the NAB. The NAB aptly translates shroud them in an unknown grave. That's Job 40:13. Hide them in the dust together and bind their faces in secret. Whew, man. Hide their dust together and bind. That's the kabash. Bind their faces in secret. Wow. Some harsh words there. Many scholars and some translations interpret Hibesh in Job 28:11 as representing hippes, searches. So you got to be careful what you're looking at. You got different words that mean different things from the Hebrew and the Akkadian and all these other words there. He says, he bindeth the floods from overflowing, and the thing is hid, bringeth he forth to the light. So he bindeth the floods from overflowing. And what this guy's talking about is the word hibesh, which is hibesh. Piki, weep, hibesh. He bindeth, kabash. So hebesh and hippes. So searches. So some say that he bindeth or dams up, as comes from the Vulgate, which is the Greek the Latin translation, and Aquila and Ugaritic. There's the Ugaritic evidence. Instead of damming the floods, the miner would be represented as searching out the sources of the rivers. So some people use that word bindeth and means searching out. So he searches out the floods from overflowing, which doesn't make sense to me. So bindeth makes more sense. So he kabash, he binds up the floods from overflowing. Just by the context, you can tell that it means that. And the thing that is hid, bringeth he forth, searches out. What's this? Secret thing that is hid. So I don't know. I'm going with what we got here with the Hebrew kabash, the saddle to bind up, rather than going with these other guys, what they're talking about. They can throw some wrenches into the etymology of words. What's the etymology of that word? Come on, let's go with what we got here. We're doing good. So a quickie on that word, kabash, and want to end it here because there's a whole bunch of things I wanted to get to. And we got this one here. This will take us half the night too, so we're going to leave that for another day. We'll look at this. 76:16 is Shabbat, broken to pieces. Comes from, this is Shabbat, which means to carry away or to take captive. And this, they threw this in here. This means agate. Shebu comes from that. So a precious stone is also in there, but we could take that out of there. We don't need to be looking at that right now. But for some reason, it's a part of the word, and then also 76:22 is Shebuth. It means captivity. So we'll be looking at these next week. Carry away captive, take captive, and this is connected to this. Shebi, captivity, captive. So this one here comes from the agate thing. So that's connected, Shebu and Shebi. But it's all TWOT 23:11, and we'll look at that next week. And also, I still didn't get to these here. This is the jailer, the 1200, Desmo Fulax, and we're going to get into this Fulax. That's the keepers. And this is kept, Fulasso, and also another prison word is Fulake. We know Fulake, we heard that a lot. These are all connected, 54:41, 42, 54:38, and 50:83. We know that's terreo, is to keep or to reserve, and that's also connected to this common prison word is teresis. So we can get into these next week also. And then I was doing a study on strength and might and things like that. So I got that in there, and if we'll get to that one of these days. And also, these are all words for strength, authority, might. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All of these for strength and might and authority, strengthen. And then 1462, which one is this? This is the prison. I think we looked at this quickly today. Yeah, that's the Mascar, 1462. We looked at that real quick, I think. Enclosure, yeah, we looked at that already, so I'll take that off of there. TWOT 1462. And then this one is, captivity and captive. So most of these we looked at already, but there's a few that pop out that we haven't looked at. Gola, which is part of the big word here, which is galal, which means to uncover. And that's connected also with Gilgal, which is the stone and all that. 1540, that's Gola. Also, 1546 is a Galuth, and that's all connected. They're all from the same word. 1546, 1473, they all come from this Galal, and there's usually a main word. But this other one with the 7628 captivity, we're going to look at that already. So you can see that a lot there. And then this, what's this last page here? This was beware. Oh, this is the 5442. Kept up. 5442. Kept. Oh, so I can close this out. So basically, that was. I wanted to cover more stuff, but that's as far as we got, man. And we'll take a moment of silence here. Thank you, God, for bringing us together. One word, man. We could spend hours. I spend days on one word, and we can get it across to people in an hour or so. So we just scratching the surface here, God. You know, we got all these beautiful words. Your book is one word, and we're just trying to decipher it, trying to divide, and we have to define it. So if we leave definition, we leave the truth. So that's what we do. We do a biblical word study. We define every single word in the Bible, and eventually we'll come to some understanding of what you want for us. And we love you. We glorify you. We give you all the praise, and hopefully we do everything in Jesus' name. Amen. Whew. So I mean that was really I guess you could say a quickie on one word, man. But it always amazes me how, you know, I start out with something and I think I'm going to cover, like you can see, I got 15 pages down there, but it never happens. So I'm going to turn off the recording before say something that I shouldn't say, which probably won't happen, but we're going to turn it off anyway. Bye bye.